If you go back a year and look at that whole landscape, you can see there were a number of things that in hindsight you can begin to see that led up to this crisis of liquidity. If you think about the nature of that business, it hinges on the contracts, it hinges on hedging arrangements, it hinges on tremendous amounts of risk management, and it's grown very quickly. And if you were looking at this from the outside, you could say all those pieces are coming into place, but there's some vulnerabilities here. Short sellers make their money when the price falls. November 2000, Jim Chanos, legendary short seller, begins to sell Enron short. In a few months, in February of the next year, he holds his Bears in Hibernation conference in Florida, inviting other legendary short sellers. They look at a range of possibilities. Enron jumps out. Enron, they understand the complexity, they understand there's a weakness, there's a vulnerability, leading to feeding Fortune magazine to write an article on Enron. Off Wall Street had attended the Bears in Hibernation conference in Florida. They likewise were short selling. So they're short selling and rumors are being planted. And then in August, Jeff Skilling resigned as CEO. He had replaced Ken Lay in February of that same year, of 2001. So Skilling was CEO from February to August, so 6 months. He resigned in August for personal reasons. In August, the operating division, they had record earnings. They had historically high record earnings, but lots of clouds, lots of questions. Why would a CEO resign? And the clouds continue. And then in September, 9/11 occurs. And when 9/11 occurred, credit markets tightened up. There was no access to capital at all. And this whole system of Enron required capital, it required leverage, it required this liquidity. And when the capital markets totally closed down, even the United States government had no access to capital markets in that immediate period after 9/11. And then in October, Enron made the decision with its accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, to correct a mistake that they perceived that they had made in January, or was restating and recharacterizing some earnings, which reduced their earnings in October. So again, more clouds. With a week or two following that, or almost a shorter period than that, I think, then the news of Andy Fastow broke. And that was after those earnings came out. Andy Fastow allegedly had stolen $7 million. No one knew how much. No one knew if that was the tip of the iceberg. There were more people involved. Again, more and more clouds. And the stock started coming down $1, and then next day it came down $2, and the next day $3, and then it came down $7. During this whole period, every day there were articles in the Wall Street Journal and other publications that added to the clouds, added to the questions, providing more heat than light on the subject. They cranked out to meet time schedules to get some article out every day. If you're running a trading company and if you lose that confidence, then the whole system can collapse. In all of those contractual arrangements, there were material adverse change clauses, which allowed, if there were a change materially, then the terms of the contract could be changed so that they could require immediate payment. Now, in the material adverse change clause, they're very fact-specific, so they're different with every contract. So there would be probably thousands of different clauses among all of this contractual regime that had been created. But it was never envisioned that changes in political or economic or financial conditions would trigger a MAC clause. It was never envisioned that an industry change would trigger one. But the wording, the generality allowed them to be exercised, probably in ways which were not ever intended to be, but they were allowed. And when the conditions were changed, then these suppliers could come forward. They could argue the material adverse change. They could require payment, and they required $9 billion worth of payment. But probably no company could have raised that amount of capital so quickly.